Picture yourself at 15 years old. You are not scrolling on a phone. You are sweating through a double shift at a gas station. You are bagging groceries until your feet are numb. You were part of the 60% of American teenagers who woke up every morning with a job to do. You saved every single dime. Not for college, not for clothes, but for a beat-up Dodge Dart that burned oil and smelled like gasoline. Forget about asking your parents for the keys. In this decade, if you wanted to drive, you had to bleed for it. When you finally handed over that cash pile of $400, you did not just buy a car. You bought the realization that you control your own life. That is a feeling no gift can ever replace. With that car came a level of freedom that has completely vanished today. You had a single verbal contract with your parents. Be home by midnight. That was the deal. What you did until then was your business. There was no GPS tracker, no Find My Friends app, no text check-ins. Just you, your car, and the open road. You'd spend entire evenings at the drive-in, at the burger joint, or parked at the lake. This freedom came with a logistical challenge. When plans changed, you had to actually find your friends. This meant knowing which spots to check, reading the parking lots, and understanding the unwritten geography of where everyone hung out. You developed a mental map of your social world. You had to pay attention. You had to predict human behavior. If you broke down, there was no cell phone to call for help. You walked to a payphone, or you popped the hood and fixed it yourself. This was the ultimate exercise in trust. Your parents trusted you to survive, and you trusted yourself to handle whatever the night threw at you. This self-reliance wasn't accidental. It was bred by the parenting style of the decade. You didn't have helicopter parents. You had the opposite. You had Home Depot parents. You know that feeling when you walk into a massive hardware store looking for help, but there's nobody around? You wander the aisles looking for an adult, any adult, and eventually you realize the hard truth. You just have to figure it out yourself. That was parenting in the 70s. If you got hurt, the advice was simple. Suck it up, walk it off, rub some dirt on it. And the most important rule wasn't about your feelings. It was, don't bleed on my shag carpet. This sounds brutal by today's standards, but it created something unexpected. Teenagers who believed they could handle things. You didn't look for a savior because you knew the only person coming to save you was you. This grit was your armor. You knew deep in your bones that you could work for what you wanted and actually get it. This wasn't neglect. It was training for reality. Armed with this independence, you stepped into the social arena. The center of this universe was the mall. In the 70s, the mall wasn't just for shopping. It was the social hub of teenage existence. You'd meet up with friends, cruise the food court, and check out the latest fashions. Then there was the arcade, the flashing lights, the buzzy sounds of Pac-Man and Space Invaders. The arcade was a social laboratory disguised as entertainment. You learned who was good under pressure, who was a sore loser, and who would lend you their last quarter. This wasn't wasting time. This was social intelligence in action. You learned to read social situations instantly. You could tell from across a parking lot whether a party was going to be drama or fun. When navigating teenage relationships without parents mediating every interaction, you developed an acute awareness of human dynamics. You learned to assess situations independently and read people's true intentions. Researchers call this advanced social cognition. You just called it surviving high school. Nowhere was this social courage tested more than in dating. If you think asking someone out today is nerve-wracking, imagine the 1970s gauntlet. You had to call her house on the family landline. This meant her dad might answer. "Hello, Mr. Johnson, this is Mike. Is Jennifer home?" You'd wait, heart pounding, while he decided whether to hand over the phone or interrogate you about your intentions. Some dads made you come inside and sit in the living room for a full interview before you could take their daughter anywhere. If you made it past the gatekeeper, you had rules. No calls after 9 p.m. Conversations were limited because the whole family shared one line. But let's say she said yes. You had to show up at her door. You never honked from the driveway. That was considered unforgivably rude. You walked up, rang the bell, made small talk with her parents, and then, finally, you could leave together. Relationships were tangible. You gave your girlfriend your class ring, often wrapped in yarn to fit her finger, or your Letterman jacket. These were public declarations. And breaking up, that meant a formal, face-to-face return of these items. No ghosting, no changing status online. It was training in high-stakes social navigation. You learned that love requires showing up, literally. But life wasn't always about social performance. There were nights when you just wanted to be alone. You'd retreat to your bedroom and close the door. That room was your world, covered in posters of Farrah Fawcett or Led Zeppelin. Central to this sanctuary was your record collection. You didn't shuffle through 10,000 songs. You saved up your money to buy one album. You committed to 40 minutes of music, front to back, reading every word in the liner notes while the needle traced the grooves. You could spend hours alone in that space, and it wasn't lonely. You'd write poetry, song lyrics, or letters you'd never send. You thought about who you were and who you wanted to be. This wasn't isolation. It was identity formation. You learned that you could be alone with your thoughts and survive it. You didn't need constant input or validation from others to know you were real. This privacy also applied to heartbreak. When you were crushed, you couldn't blast your ex on social media or text 15 friends for instant comfort. You cried into your pillow. You drove around at midnight with the windows down, feeling every bit of that pain. You learned that heartbreak wouldn't kill you, that you could feel devastating emotions and come out the other side. This is emotional resilience. Finally, there was the lesson of waiting. You wanted concert tickets? You camped out overnight? You wanted to hear your favorite song? You waited by the radio with a cassette tape, praying the DJ wouldn't talk over the intro. This rhythm of longing and fulfillment created the ability to delay gratification. You understood that anticipation was part of the experience. Modern teenagers have instant everything, but your brain learned that things felt more transcendent specifically because you waited for them. And when you failed, when you didn't make the team or got rejected from college, there was no permanent digital record, no social media pile-on. You failed, felt terrible, and moved on. This reality taught you anti-fragility, not just bouncing back, but growing stronger through adversity. Decades later, looking back, you realize that those years of figuring it out on your own, of making mistakes in private, made you who you are. You developed conviction because no one was there to validate every choice. You became comfortable with yourself because you built that self in the quiet moments. The 1970s generation carries something rare in our hyperconnected world, an unshakable sense of self. They learned that you don't need an audience to know who you are. They are living proof that the best years are often the ones spent off-screen.